right, so we are now live. How's it going today, Chris?
Wonderful. How are you?
Great. Yeah, I guess one thing I probably should have told you is that it's not live or anything. I'm just going to record it and
Hmm,
we'll post it up later. So, yeah,
all good.
yeah. So one thing I actually wanted to know about you, Chris, is more about your origin story. Like I know I've watched like clips of you in the past talking about how you came from like BC and you were a sheet metal worker, but yeah, why don't you kind of give me more of like a deeper dive into your origin story and how you got into real estate.
Yeah, so I read a book one time, Rich Dad Poor Dad, which got me thinking more into terms of sales and investing. And, that was sort of the beginning of, I guess, my real estate career was, you know, seeing what's possible, right? It's like, okay, everybody wants to make more money. How do you do that? You got to learn how to sell. And even if you're in a regular job, you need to learn how to sell your ideas. You need to learn how to sell yourself to get a promotion. You need to learn how to be a better communicator, maybe more of a leader and those types of things. But or you can just transition to a commission-based role, right? And then from that point, it's like, well, if you want to be worth more, let's say if you want to have a larger net worth, well, you need to invest. And if you want to do something that is a little bit safer and something that almost anybody could do, then that's where real estate makes really good sense, because it's a relatively safe and predictable investment as compared to a lot of other different types of investments. And so it's not it's slow and boring. It's not a get rich quick, but it just made sense. And yeah, is a definitely a learning curve, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I share like a similar sentiment. I know I used to go to school in Moose Jaw, and my old roommate was a car salesman,
Hmm.
and he gave me like a Grant Cardone book and Rich Dad Poor Dad. I actually have Rich Dad Poor Dad behind me somewhere here, but I remember reading in college something about how it might have been from Rich Dad Poor Dad or from Grant Cardone that most millionaires start out in sales. So the story goes for me, you know, drop out of college and sell cars for a couple of years. So I kind of went down that like a similar path.
Yeah, it is. It's like I call it self-directed education, right? You pay the tuition no matter what you do, whether you buy the books, and or if you go cut your teeth out in the marketplace, when you make a mistake and you don't get the sale, well, you paid, in a different way. And the funny thing is now, and unless you're very specific about your profession and your direction with, post-secondary education, there's nothing saying that you're going to leave university now these days with anything but debt. Like, are you really positioning yourself to strengthen your resume and your position? Unless you're very planned with the direction that you're going, that's not always the case. And the cost is going up and the benefit is going down. So I mean, it's not, things are changing. You see people, I say kids, but you see young men your age in their early 20s, where you're like, you kind of have to have an entrepreneurial spirit just to get by. You have to have 3 side hustles just to make a decent living, and the house prices are getting ridiculously crazy. Not so much here in Saskatchewan, but in general, overall, prices are going up, interest rates are going up. It's just like, man, you kind of have to be creative to make a solid career for yourself if you're young and looking to get into, I guess, just setting yourself up long term.
Yeah, you kind of have to have that spirit even if you are in school, because like a lot of the people that are my age and going to school, they say that like the best part about school is the networking. You know what I mean? So even if you do well in school, you still have to be able to like sell yourself as a valuable asset to somebody else, right? Because like you said, there really are no guarantees, right?
Well, and we need doctors, we need lawyers, we need nurses, we need accountants. That's not what I'm saying, but there's so many people that go to university and they graduate with something that's irrelevant to anything that they ever use. And I mean, it's not that it's a waste of time and money necessarily. There's good experience there. There certainly is, and good connections. It just comes down to there's the percentage of people that graduate that don't have any direct benefit of how to use it is staggeringly high, which I
Yeah.
find interesting, challenging. But
Yeah. So with that said, would you say sales is kind of like the most important career skill that you can have no matter, or pretty much no matter what you can do?
I would say sales and leadership. Though, but I mean, it's sort of sales is direct, like can you sell or not, and until you test it in the market, right? And then every sales job's a little different, but leadership is intangible, right? It's like, okay, well, but it's the most valuable skill. You look at the most educated person in the world, the smartest, most brilliant person, is not going to have the same earning potential as somebody who's a very strong leader, somebody who has the ability to organize and support people. So and to put people to have the ability to get people to work together for a common goal where everybody wins. You're always going to be compensated more in that type of role.
Yeah. So I guess on that topic, would you say that sales would like going back to like 20-year-old Chris, what were you like pretty good at it? Would you say you had like a natural aptitude to be good at it, or did you kind of struggle with it?
No, I definitely did not. I learned almost everything from scratch. So, but everything can be learned. It's like, I would say like the skill that I did have was I knew that I could learn something if I stuck to it. And that's kind of how it's turned out. And I always say it's, a little bit of a gift and a curse, but it has turned into a great leadership quality now in hindsight, where it was so it was such a learning curve for me in the beginning to get good at all this stuff that now that I've learned it, you know, frontwards, backwards, inside out, upside down, I know it well enough that I could teach it to the next person, regardless of where they're starting from, which is, that's the gift. But yeah, it was a lot of hard work. But people say, oh, I'm not a people person, or, that works for this person, but not for that person. It's like, anybody can learn if you're willing to put in the time, the effort, and the attention. It's like anything, people skills or sales skills. It's, it can be learned.
Yeah. So speaking of that ability to uh, pick up something and just being willing to learn, is that kind of translating into your progress in the gym? I see on your Instagram stories you're working out every morning. How's that been going for you?
Yeah, but that's an interesting thing that you say. So it's funny that you say that because I find that when you're consistently working out, your performance at work is also better. Like I get more done at work when I'm regularly working out in the mornings. And then the other thing is it's like anybody can get in shape, but to stay in shape is a different thing. And then if you add one more layer to it, it's kind of like, yeah, I've just been posting about it recently, but it's like this started years ago where it was like, a mental health exercise. Let's make sure that I do 20 push-ups a day or whatever. And so it started really small, and then over time it accumulated into now where I'm like, I haven't been in this kind of shape since I was in my 20s. I don't want to sit here and say I'm in the best shape of my life because people say that. Everybody says that when they get back into routine, but like to me, it's kind of another thing. Oh, I don't have time to work out. It's like, well, it's just priorities. If you prioritize your physical health, it will happen. And so now it's just that I feel like on the weekends I don't work out on Saturdays and Sundays, and I miss it. I'm just like by Monday, I'm like, I got to get going. I got to get in the gym. I got to get working out. So it makes big difference.
Yeah. So do you want to tell everyone how much you can bench now, Chris?
Well, I have a home gym. You know what? I have a home gym, and I used to be able to do quite a bit on the bar, but I don't have a barbell at home. So I've been purchasing bigger weights, but the fact is, right now I'm doing like 3 sets of 20, and so it's like I probably need to buy some bigger weights. But it's the same idea. It's like that, just because you don't have the perfect equipment is not an excuse not to push. Where it's like, you know what? Do 300 push-ups. People, oh, I don't have a home gym, don't have this. Do 300 push-ups. Do pull-ups. So it's like you could push the weight or you could push the reps. So I think the most important thing is that you are pushing yourself. And that's another thing I realized was that if you're working out 3 days a week, you're basically barely maintaining. If you're working out, it's not until you're working out 5 days a week that you can actually see a progression. And then you actually have to push yourself when you go, because otherwise you're just coasting, so
Yeah.
yeah, you got to see the gains.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So you're working out 5 days a week, and you're going pretty hard on like the like building muscle and losing fat kind of stuff, or what's your routine like?
Yeah, like I mean, right now, I would say like I've gained a lot of strength in the last few months, but that's just because I started pushing myself and going 5 days a week. Before it was 3 days a week, and then before that it was body weight only, and then before that it was evenings, which was not, it wasn't sustainable, and then before that it was just a basic push-ups and squats, like just simple. But you just get into a routine and then you finally draw a line in the sand and say, enough is enough. This is me. This is where I need to be. This is who I need to be. No questions asked. Because everybody wants to be that person. But are you that person? And it's kind of like this too. Same thing goes for family, life balance and family, if there is such a thing, and your health and everything else, your relationships. It's like once I'm a multi millionaire, then I'll have the time, care, effort, and attention to get in shape. Once I'm the multi millionaire, then I'll have the time to balance my life and my relationships. It's like, well, wait a minute. Why don't you just be that person now? And the likelihood of you gravitating towards the person who has all of the rest of it, including the money, will just happen naturally by itself. And if you create higher standards and priorities for yourself, then people will respect you for that. So that's my 2 cents, I suppose, if that answers your question.
Yeah, yeah, I find that like health and wealth almost work synergistically together. Like if you're just like in better health, then you'll have more energy to have better wealth, you
Well,
know?
and here's the thing. I mean, if you had to pick one or the other, which would you rather have? If you had to sacrifice one.
It's a good question. Probably the wealth, I'd say.
Well,
'Cause
think about
you have to have good health.
yeah, that's what I
And,
mean. So, like, if you had all the wealth in the world, but you didn't have good health, I mean, that's pretty tough. So you don't want to work your whole life sacrificing your health to achieve wealth, only to find out in the end that you can't buy your health back. You know. So, but so much of it's outside of your control. So you might as well focus on what you can control, which is having some sort of routine. You know.
yeah, so outside of working out, do you have like a routine for like, uh, just getting yourself to like feel good or make you feel at your best? Like for me, I like to go to the sauna and do like a cold shower after I work out because I always find that I just sleep like a baby if I do it that way. But do you have anything like that?
Yeah, like my routine is I wake up in the morning, do mindset, like either a meditation or a read. I'll read for 30 minutes. And then, in a perfect world, I'll work for an hour, try to knock out some sort of, administrative activity. And then after that, I'll work out for 45 minutes and then get ready for the day. So that's these days during the week. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess you can't automate your your health or anything, right? So one thing I did want to talk about with you was some AI stuff. So I know you're kind of on the forefront of AI as an agent. Um, I know that I was at an event in Edmonton last month where Glenn Sanford was talking about AI and how it was going to like change real estate. So give me a glimpse of how it's kind of changed the game for you.
Well, the funny thing is, I mean, for me to say that I'm on the forefront, all that really means is that I'm paying attention and applying it. Right. I don't know that I would say that I'm like, cutting edge necessarily, but the fact of it is, everybody either knows it exists or is living under a rock. And then, but a lot of people have said, well, I don't need that, or that's like, that doesn't apply to me, or forget that, or that's too complicated, which it's not. It's actually a simpler way to use technology than there ever was before, and it makes it easier for people that apply it, makes your life easier. But I guess it's kind of like ChatGPT. People say, "Oh, geez, how do you use it? Does it apply to real estate?" Well, think of it like this: Do you use Google every day? Yes, you do. How often do you use Google every day? Let's just say this, the easiest way for me to explain, just the one app even, is that probably 85 to 95% of the searches that I do now are done through ChatGPT simply because it gives me such better answers. And it actually uses the web now. It'll cross check and search the web and itemize and categorize and calculate for you and research for you. Not it's 100% accurate, but like it's just part of my everyday. And then especially when it comes to content creation, like if you're into creating content, video content, scripts for YouTube and Instagram and email, it's just so much simpler with the use of that tool. And it really just allows you to take full advantage of opportunities that you probably would have just put on the sideline for a long period of time. You can actually have not the manpower, but the leverage to put to work that idea that you've been talking about doing forever. But I already know, just based on what you can do with it's wild, like absolutely wild. Like if I was to apply it to its full capacity, I mean, if you partner automation with AI, it's lights out. But it's changing so fast. Like, I mean, you can barely apply one part of it before the whole thing evolves. So but it's a lot of fun. I find no matter what, definitely a fun time to be, paying attention to what's happening in technology. That's for sure.
Yeah. Do you think that an agent who, or just anybody in general who says, I don't need AI or that's not really for me, that could be a symptom of just having really bad systems in their business?
I think there's two sides to this coin. I think that there's some people that over focus on AI and they think that it's like the shining light that's going to change the world for them forever, which there's some truth to that. But as we just mentioned, you still need leadership skills, you still need persuasive skills, you still need to have a strong mindset, you still need to believe in yourself. And those are intangible things that are human. I mean? So AI is a robot. And so, but now with that robot, you think, well, try to go back to, and somebody gave me this analogy. It's like the tractor's coming, and you are a farmer with a pickaxe, and you're saying, oh my goodness, the tractor's going to take away my job. I'm not using it. And then those farmers are no longer farmers anymore. And then the farmers that are like, yay, tractor, I don't have to break my back. How can I invest in and, put to use a tractor on my farm? Those guys are still farming 3, 4, 5 generations later. So it's the same thing right now with AI. People try to compare it to like the internet, but I think it's so much more than that. It's like the industrial revolution. I think it's bigger than the internet in a large capacity because I mean, essentially, the internet is kind of like its brain, which is essentially bits and pieces of information that we've given to it for years and years and years. And of course, there's also people that go down the wormhole of saying, geez, well, it's doomsday, which I mean, yes, certainly every piece of technology going back historically has always been weaponized. But I would just go as far as to say that this the big corporations and the global leaders have had access to this technology long before it was ever public. So we're already subject to it largely through social media, et cetera, different algorithms already. It's only now that we're finally getting to taste a piece of what we can actually do with it publicly. But it certainly is cats out of the bag. So we'll see how things unfold. But I don't think it's going to be Terminator. I don't think we're going to see Terminator 2. But it is interesting conversation, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how you can kind of make all those connections, and I do agree with you. Um, One thing I was thinking though is, has anyone ever told you you almost sound like a talking chat GPT?
I don't know. I mean, maybe I am a little bit robotic. Maybe I am a little bit boring. I don't know. Pretty straightforward, but I am an analytical thinker, right? So
Yeah.
that's part of like what I try to promote and teach with people is understanding the four personalities, right? So you've got the analytical, the driver, the amiable, and the expressive. So I'm definitely facts and figures. I love facts and figures. I love thinking. I get caught in thinking. I probably think too much. I probably overthink everything, but that's my tendency. That's my personality. And learning how to be a little bit more adaptable, I think, is important. The driver personality is not beating around the bush. Are we doing this or not? Don't waste my time. And then you've got the expressive who's like, the peacock. They walk into the room and all of a sudden, they're the life of the party and they're nonstop talking and all this kind of stuff. They're very vibrant. And then you've got the amiable personality who's friends with everybody. They're very warm and they're very approachable, but they're also very non-confrontational. So there's pros and cons to every personality, but I would agree that most certainly I am definitely a strong analytical personality, if that's what you're saying, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely am too. But
Yeah.
where did you get those four personality types from? Because I think I heard a very like almost exactly similar one where it was like PASE, pace, practical, analytical, social, and then maybe emotional was like the acronym. But it sounded almost exactly like the way you described it.
Yeah, it is. Then there's a multitude of different ways to separate the four personalities, and I think it's all basically the same. It's people, right? So I think it was Larry Wilson, so the program I originally learned it from through one of the sales training programs that I was taking part of. But and it's interesting. We start to profile your family members, and you're like, oh dang, now I understand why this person behaves this way or whatever. It's a super helpful tool. I know Myers Briggs takes it a little bit further down, and they itemize like four different categories. But I'm like, even though I'm analytical, I'm like, that's too complicated. You just that it's too much. By the time it's lost in my opinion, it's lost in translation by the time you dissect it that far. But I like some people like to say, "Well, I'm all for. I'm balanced," and like you might be more balanced than some people, but everybody is most strongly one more than the other three. You know,
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree.
yeah. So, but people don't like to be pigeonholed. But it's just that it's the way it is. It's okay.
Yeah, yeah. So on the topic of that, as an analytical person, I know you had talked in the past too about I think Dale Carnegie training or even like public speaking. Uh, I guess that even ties into like leadership skills too. But do you think that's really helped you a lot in your real estate career? Uh, get to where you are now, and maybe even like bleeds into your your social life or your family life too.
Yeah, like the Dale Carnegie course that I took was definitely, the catalyst, or it catapulted me, or however you want to say it, into real estate. Like, so there's like a few books that I read early on. One of them was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. There was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and there was like Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And those are like three classics. There's a bunch of other ones like Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. So there's a handful of those like sort of old school classics, whatever. But Dale Carnegie, I remember like I read the book, and then my wife, she was actually like, actually, did you know that there's a public speaking course? Because I was like blown away. Oh my goodness, did you know that public speaking can like, make your career a lot bigger success? And it's like, yeah, there's actually a course where you can go out and practice public speaking. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't actually want to public speak. I
Yeah.
just want to read about it. You know what I mean? So, but getting out there and like talking to people and, getting outside of your comfort zone and that definitely, I don't think that I would have been able to be a successful agent without that, because of the learning skills in that, but also the network that I built in there, the friendships that you build, sort of allowing yourself to be a little bit more vulnerable or opening up a little bit, getting out of your shell. You kind of grow together in those 12 weeks. But I remember like leaving, it was 3 hours, and you'd sit around waiting for your turn to speak in front of a group of professional people. And, me coming from a trades background, I was like, I didn't even feel like I was a professional person, never mind. And like you're sweating just waiting. But even once I was done, I knew I had to come back next week. I was sweating all week for the whole 7 days waiting for the next week. But honestly, that was like for sure. Even Warren Buffett talks about that. He says that the Dale Carnegie course was the most valuable education that he ever took, because it helped him with his ability in learning how to communicate with people. So, I mean, take it from him how valuable that skill is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I did a similar one. I did Toastmasters. I did that for 2 years, and I think I shared a similar sentiment when you were saying that the second time you went there, you were like really nervous or whatever. I felt that like every time. I don't think it really ever went away from me. Like, um, I think after about a year, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna feel nervous every time. So then it becomes like a thing of how do I do this in spite of being nervous, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, do
You
you guys feel
found
the same way?
yeah, you got to be comfortable in the uncomfortable, and that's where the growth happens. You know, but
Yeah. Well, cool. So yeah, why don't you tell me a little bit about some of your marketing strategies for I guess like for your business as far as like the production side of things, and if you even want to get into like the recruitment side of things, you can too.
yeah, like I mean, you'd mentioned AI, so we're definitely implementing AI into some of the automations that we put into place. But without getting too far off on a tangent with like what's the latest and greatest, this year has really been sort of a wake up call to back to the basics. Like, yes, you can even apply some sort of the new technologies, but it still is back to the basics. There are tools that can help you communicate faster and in a better, more organized fashion with the people that you know. And that's what it essentially is. It's like building your network, building relationships, building more relationships, building better relationships with more people, and having more conversations per day. And that's really the basic fundamentals of it. It's like we're just looking for additional opportunities to put in the work so we can prove to people what it is that we do and how we're different. Whether it's recruiting or sales, it's the same thing. And so, like, it's never a guarantee that you're going to be paid. But that's like what Napoleon Hill said. He goes, "Always do more than that for which you're paid, and you're always going to be compensated." You know,
Accordingly.
exactly. Whether it's directly or indirectly, you'll see more opportunities come to you as a result of doing that. And so that's what this year's been all about. It's a busy go market, and all of a sudden it's like nothing is going on. But you're still working, and so it's just like that the law of averages, things will have there's going to be ups and downs in the market. But if you're the one that's putting in the time, effort, care, and attention and the extra work, it's just going to pay off. So marketing strategies, we're just pounding the pavement this year. We are applying some tools and automation, as far as email, we're doing video marketing, but it's like talking to all the people that going back to all of your old lists and reaching back out to the people that you've been in touch with. 10 years in the business, it's a big list. So I tell people to do this day one in real estate, but they don't have a big list yet, and so it's like, when was the last time that you actually went through your entire network? So it's work. It's when you knock on the door of opportunity, who answers? It's work. So just work, man. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
Super simple stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I actually think so. Going back a little bit, I know you said that you were shooting some videos and stuff. Um, if I remember correctly, when you used to shoot a lot more like real estate videos, I remember like Jacob and Drew, they'd always say that you pretty much just shoot your videos in one clip and then just not really worry about it, which is it's kind of an admirable quality considering a lot of real estate agents get really flustered in front of the camera.
Yeah.
You probably know like exactly what I mean when everyone's like, "Oh, does my collar look okay? Does my hair look right? Why did I stutter there?" Overthinking it. So like, what would be? And you're like the total opposite of that. So what would be your advice to those people?
Yeah. I do that with my YouTubes now too. Done is better than perfect. And no matter how hard you try, it's not going to be perfect anyways. And no matter what, like, if you're worried about how you're going to look on video, it's like, guess what? When you go to the listing appointment or the showing, it's the same you. If you're flustered on the video, you're probably flustered on the showing. And I mean, there's a certain amount of comfort zone. Like, some people, oddly enough, some people are like comfortable speaking in front of a group or a boardroom, but like, can't they get nervous when they're looking at a camera, or vice versa? They have no problem in front of a camera, but as soon as they get in front of a live group or a boardroom, they get so there's a little bit of comfort zone there. But I'm like, I would just say, if it makes you uncomfortable, do more of it. If you know, first of all, if you're doing something that makes you uncomfortable, that means that you're doing the right thing, but that also means you need to do it like 100 more times. And
Yeah, reps and sets.
yeah, and you can't worry about what other people are going to think. Otherwise you're not going to you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, in my friend group, we call that the Arnold method. Arnold in his book said that you can pretty much just learn anything with reps and sets. Like when he was trying to become an actor and all the producers were telling him that his accent was too thick, he would practice lines like all day, every day, kind of
I
thing.
love it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the truth. And I mean, yeah, you just same thing. It's work. It's work. You know.
yeah, persist past it. But yeah, another thing I wanted to dive into was EXP versus Real. I know Real Broker isn't even in Saskatchewan, or maybe it is, and I have just been living under a rock. But um, it almost, from an outsider, because like I'm obviously not a real estate agent. From the outside looking in, it almost sounds like they're trying to sell the same thing or promote the same thing. But to anyone who's an outsider like me, like what's kind of like the difference between the two?
You know what? I think that when people start talking about EXP versus real, they're trying to create here's what this business model is, here's what this business model is, and which one has a better business model. And so it's kind of like saying, you know, which real estate agent's better to list with. So, yes, they are similar models. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to get too caught in the weeds. I do think that EXP is a substantially inferior model, and I'm not, or sorry, it's a superior model. I think that Real Broker is an inferior model, in my biased opinion, of course. But I don't think that's what matters most to agents. So I think what matters most to agents is that who are the people that I'm doing business with? Because let's look at this. Let's compare EXP to Remax or any other real estate company. It's like, well, not every single agent wants to work for EXP. And even if it is the best business model, what it comes down to is, am I getting the support I need? Am I getting the community that I need? Am I accomplishing the goals that I set out to do? And am I in business with the people that I feel comfortable and confident being in business with? So to me, that's the most important thing because, now all of what's great about the company you work for and what the company is that you're offering, that's all bonus because if you can, have somebody buy into you, then all you've really done is create a connection with somebody to then talk about what opportunity that you have. And it wouldn't matter if you're selling lotions and potions or camera gear or photography or real estate or anything, recruiting to a new opportunity, you have to create those relationships first. And that's another thing that I mentioned about this year is back to the basics. Build those relationships, add value to those relationships, work your butt off. And, it comes full circle. So, I mean, there is timing, like, certain opportunities will hit the market and they'll do really well because of the timing. But you can see right now, slow and steady wins the race as of right now based on market. There's a lot of agents that are leaving the business, right, that are part-time or agents that were, second incomes, and they're not seeing real estate as a lucrative opportunity due to the work required now that the market's changing. um, and so, but the fundamentals are still true. That's why you're seeing like the big strong teams are joining us here in Canada right now, and for the same reasons. They're looking for somewhere that they can have additional opportunities that makes good sense long term. And so, I don't know if that answers your question, but whenever anybody asks me, like a potential recruit, should I consider EXP or Real? It's like, well, let's talk about what you're trying to accomplish in your business, and let's talk about whether myself, my group, and or potentially the platform and the company, whether we can help you accomplish those goals. And so if they choose to go with the other company, I would say 9 times out of 10, it's not because of the opportunity at the other company. It's because of whoever they talk to or the relationship that they've built with whoever they know from the other company, because it's the same conversation if they go to Remax. I have a best friend that works at Remax and they're going to help me out. So it's like it's a relationship business is really the basic bottom line to it. It's not There's no get rich quick scheme. It's build relationships, and yes, it's a better business model, but you still got to do good business, offer value. It's what it is. And there's more. There's other business models that are trying to copy what we did too. But I mean, even if it was apples to apples, it's a people business, no matter what. If that answers your
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, no, that does actually answer my question in a lot of depth, actually. Every time I ask you a question about pretty much anything, you you always go back to like just do the fundamentals, just put in the work. That kind of reminds me of I was reading Michael Jordan's biography, and all of his coaches said that he was just like the king of the fundamentals. You know what I mean? So we kind of have to be the king of the fundamentals in our own lives, in our own careers and businesses and such. So with that said, to kind of kick things off here, is there any advice that you would give either A to your younger self, or B to someone who's kind of aspiring to get into real estate?
Man, that's a good question. To my younger self, I would just say believe in yourself. And I think that's the truth for a new agent. That's the truth for, any young aspiring young man, young woman. And it doesn't really even matter the age, but that's the whole thing. Doesn't matter how good AI is. If you don't believe you can achieve something, it wouldn't matter if it was slapping you and giving it to you right in the face. And then it's like, here, take my money. Well, I don't believe that I deserve it. So I would say that that is honestly the biggest thing. And that's a mindset thing. So you have to work on that, but it's constant, never ending. That's just the way life is. So that would be words of encouragement. Although, like what you say, it's funny because you could go to the most successful person in the world, Elon Musk or anybody, and like we said, Michael Jordan, and you ask them, what's the key to success? And be like, show up every day, work hard, do the fundamentals. It's the same thing. But an overall, like the catch-all would be believe in yourself, because it doesn't matter how many advantages and tools that you have, it's the game. It's not. There's no competition. It's you versus you, and that's the same answer to you talking EXP and Real. It's like, well, whichever company you work for, what can you do better? You know, how can you offer more value to the marketplace? So it's get 1% better every day. You know, that's it.
Yeah, I knew instinctively that you were gonna tie it back into the fundamentals somehow. And anyways, yeah, great stuff, Chris. I really appreciate your time and really appreciate you coming on.
Cool, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure's all mine.
Yeah.